Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael and today we're going to be making cornbread. Get that cast iron skillet out. This couldn't be any easier to make and it is so delicious. Stay with me and I'll show you how it's made. Let's get started making our cornbread. So we're going to be using a cast iron skillet tonight, and I've got a 10-inch large cast iron skillet here that I've seasoned. And if you haven't seen that video on how I seasoned this skillet, I'll put that link in the description box below and you can follow that, because you definitely want to use a cast iron skillet to make a cornbread because it puts an absolute incredible crust on the outside of it and it just makes it so much better. But you can use a regular pan if you don't have one of these, but this adds just a little bit more to it. So 10-inch large cast iron skillet. Now I've got a stick of butter here and I've cut these into little pieces. We're going to be putting 6 tablespoons of butter into the bottom of our cast iron skillet. And I've got my oven already preheated to 425. So I'm going to go ahead and put these pieces of butter in my skillet here. A normal stick of butter has 8 tablespoons in it, so we've used 6 tablespoons of that for our skillet today. So now I've got this in my skillet. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the oven, and we want this to get extremely hot. So I'm going to leave it in there, let it melt the butter, and then we'll get started on our other ingredients. Now that we've got our skillet in our oven and it is getting hot and melting that butter, let's go ahead and put our other ingredients together. So I think the best cornbread has a mixture of cornmeal and flour in it. So I've got equal amounts of cornmeal and flour. So I've got some of this Martha White self-rising cornmeal, and then that's 1 cup of that. And then I've got 1 cup of all-purpose flour. So this doesn't have any leaveners in it, so we're going to be putting some of that in just a second. So like I say, I've got 1 cup of the self-rising cornmeal. You can use any kind that you want. This is the Martha White kind. And then I've got the 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And now we're going to be putting in the option. I've got 2 tablespoons of sugar. In the South here, if you go into any restaurant, you're going to get a lot of cornbread that's going to have a lot of sugar in it. And the 2 tablespoons, you're not going to really notice it in your cornbread as being sweet. But it just kind of adds just a little bit extra to it versus not putting it in it. But this is optional. If you don't want to put this in, you don't have to. Again, this is 2 tablespoons. Now, if you were making your cornbread for Thanksgiving or for Christmas, for the holidays, for your dressing, you would not want to put sugar in your cornbread. You can use the same recipe for that. Just omit the sugar, and that was how we're going to be making our dressing for our upcoming holidays for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. And then for our leaveners, I've got 1½ teaspoons of baking powder. So this is baking powder, and I've got 1½ teaspoons of that. And then I've got a ½ teaspoon of baking soda, and this is baking soda. And then I've got a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Those are the dry ingredients we've got for our cornmeal. Now we're going to be looking at our wet ingredients, and I've got 2 eggs, 2 large eggs, and I'm going to give those a little beat through. And I've got 1½ cups of buttermilk. This adds the zing and the taste to it that makes the cornbread so really tasty. So it's 1½ cups of buttermilk. I'm going to use my little spatula and we're going to get all of that out of there. And let's give that a good mix through with our eggs. So now that we've got our wet ingredients put together, let's put our dry ingredients together now. So I'm going to add my 1 cup of cornmeal. I'm going to add my 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I'm going to put my 2 tablespoons of sugar in. The 1½ teaspoon of baking powder. The ½ teaspoon of baking soda. And my 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And let's give that a whisk through. Just make sure that everything gets incorporated and gets all mixed together. All right, I'm going to put some of these things away while my skillet's getting hot. I'm going to leave the wet and the dry ingredients separate until my skillet comes out of the oven, and then we'll put those together, and I'll be back in just a minute. All right, I'm getting ready to take my skillet out of the oven, so I'm going to go ahead and put my wet and dry ingredients together. So I'm going to go ahead and put my buttermilk and my eggs together with my flour and cornmeal. And we're going to give that a good mix through. There's my consistency for my cornbread. So let me get the skillet out of the oven, and we'll put this in there and get ready to bake it. All right, our butter has melted in our skillet, and you can see here what it looks like. Let's add our cornmeal into our skillet. And I'm going to put this on here so that I don't touch it because, like I say, safety, 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 because that is piping hot. All right, there we go. Let's put our cornbread in the oven, and we're going to bake it for 20 to 25 minutes, depending on your stove, and we'll show you what it looks like when it's done. All right, we have cornbread here, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. If you want to, you can turn the broiler up on the top of it if you want a little bit more brown, but I kind of like mine that way right there. So let's take a plate, and we're going to put it on our cornbread here, and just be very careful because this skillet is piping hot. And there we go. You have cornbread. All right, there you go. It couldn't be any easier than that. I hope you like this content. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And check out one of these other 2 videos over here. You might find something else you like. And give this cornbread a try. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below how your cornbread turned out or if you do anything different with it. And again, thank you for watching and enjoy my cornbread recipe. Bye-bye now.